Hello everybody and welcome to Blank Screen, script writing with Final Draft for iPads. This is our series of introductory workshops that are designed to take you from blank screens to filled screens. So today we'll be looking at screenwriting and using the Final Draft mobile version that's available for iPads. So it's a great tool, and if you've joined us before for other screenwriting workshops, you're probably familiar already with Final Draft, so it's really the industry standard script writing software. And today we'll be looking at script formats, and you'll see how great this software is, and it's perfect for iPads or iPhones. You can use it as well. You can export the script format, and it's a low-cost app. So it's a great tool that our users out there can use. So I just want to thank all the partners in this project for making this happen. So we have we have all our partners. We have Canada Council for the Arts. We also have the Blue Mountains Public Library. We have the Collingwood Public Library, and we also have the Saga Beach Public Library. So really want to thank everyone for their support of making this project happen. You'll be able to rewatch this as we continue forward, and you'll be able to check out any anything in terms of the rewatching or any of the concepts that we talk about today. You'll be able to rewatch on this link directly. So that's a really exciting thing that you'll be able to use it directly and rewatch, and you can go over some of the concepts we talk about today. So that's the really great thing. And then, we encourage everyone to join us on our YouTube channel as well. So if you go to tbmcs.ca, you'll be able to join us on the YouTube channel to figure out, more things. And we have a series of master classes. Some of them are 4 parts, 2 parts, multi-part master sessions. So we really hope that everyone can join us for those and learn more about the digital arts. And screenwriting is one of those amazing art forms that you can use for multiple things. So we're talking about film. We're talking about you can do audio podcasts. Anything that you're telling stories with can be used in that manner. So it's a really great tool to use for multiple art forms for sure. So in terms of today, we'll be looking at what is Screenwriting Essentials. We'll be really diving right into the Final Draft mobile for scripts on iPads and using that software. And it's a really great tool, and again, the low cost app. So it's it's inexpensive at the end of the day. In terms of being able to use something that can work, and that's the same thing as Final Draft, but you can take it with you. And think about this. This is the whole point: is how do we make things fun when we're looking at story writing? Like, what if you can write your story maybe in the same location where your story is based? And this is the kinds of things we want to encourage. Like, what if it's in a coffee shop? You can go to the coffee shop and you can write your script. You don't have to take a big laptop or other kind of device, but you can write it on your phone. You can write it on your iPad or iPhone. So that's the really cool thing that we'll be looking at. Okay, so what is screenwriting? I think this is an important question. Screenwriting or script writing, it's the art and craft of writing a screenplay, script for media. Now I say media because, again, like I said, it could be for an audio podcast. It could be for something else. It could be a script, maybe for like some sort of an arts installation or presentation. So we're trying to define, not really put it into too much of a block of a definition, but it's really open. So any kind of time you're wanting to write a story, the screenplay format is an ideal format that can be used to tell those stories. And it's something that's understood and familiar for a lot of people. When you see a script, they're easy to read, understand, and to comprehend in terms of what's happening and where it's happening. I think that's really important. It saves the time of explaining that we're outside of a library, when we can just say exterior library day. Like, that is very concise, to the point. We move on, and then we can describe things further in the description, but it doesn't take all that time to figure out we're now in this location, and that's the kind of the beauty of the script writing process, is that it really makes things concise. So screenplays, they can be original works, or they can be adapted from other writing as well. So that could be, we see those adapted novels, adapted short stories, things like that can be adapted. And then screenplays overall, they include the movement, actions, expression, and dialogue of the characters. So it's telling us what they're doing. So it's a lot about the people. Now, characters don't necessarily even have, I just said people, they don't have to be people. It could be animals, it can be different types of characters within that too. But the point is the screenplays tell us about the characters and what they're doing and what they're saying. And dialogue is important. Now, we can also not necessarily have dialogue. That might be something we don't have. We can have a narrator, for example, if we don't want to have, if we don't want to have dialogue spoken, we might have a narration. Let's say it's about animals. We might have a narrator, and the animals can't speak. So that's something, that could be happening as well. So just things to think about. Okay, so elements of a story, and this is a great quote, and I've shared this now a few times in different workshops. But a beautifully told story is a symphonic unity in which structure, setting, character, genre, and idea meld seamlessly. To find their harmony, the writer must study the elements of story as if they were instruments of an orchestra, first separately, then in concert. So you need to think about, what's your structure? What's the setting? Where does it take place? What kind of characters are in there? What kind of genre are you going to, look at it? And the genre is a shorthand to give us an idea. So that's typically like, is it a drama, a romance, a western? And we'll look at some of those after. And then what's the overall idea? Like what's the idea? What's the point? What's the point of this story? And I think that's really key, right? Like we often joke about that. Sometimes, a family member might tell us a story and we're like, well, what's the point of that? Or a friend, and we're like, I don't get what the point of that was. So, you just heard a story, there's no point. So that's the idea of an idea, is that there is some sort of a point to the story. And that's what we always want to emphasize in script writing, that we have a point. So think of this, I think that's a beautiful way to think of it, that the story unfolds, it's like a symphonic unity. Everything has to work together. And that's when you get the perfect script. And this then carries over into the perfect film or the perfect audio podcast, is that it has to be, melding together seamlessly as a symphonic orchestra. So 3-act story structure, it's very, kind of a standard concept here, but generally this is what we have, and we see this a lot in different projects and productions and films and TV shows, is the 3-act structure. So we have Act 1, which is the establishing act. Act 2, it's building to some sort of an ending. Act 3, we have a climax of resolution, and the show ends, or it leaves some questions open, and to maybe for the next part or the next episode, depending if it's episodic. So maybe there's some unanswered questions, and that brings us to the next episode. But 3-act structure is has been around for thousands of years now, and this is how it works. So Act 1, establish. Act 2, build. Act 3, resolve. So that's what we want to achieve when we're writing. There's the inciting incident. Something happens to propel the story forward. Again, what is the point? If nothing's happening, we can be in Seinfeld, and they always said, oh, nothing happens in Seinfeld, but something happens. There's always an inciting incident. Something happened to somebody, and how, where it goes from there. And then we need to move forward. Plot point, something, continues and it builds up. There's, conflicts and positive, negative, and so on. Midpoint, rising action. It's kind of the first crescendo of this symphonic orchestra. Plot point 2, maybe something shifts. Tables have turned. We get into some sort of climax, and there's the resolution. And this, you can look at theater, Shakespearean plays. This kind of standard classical 3-act structure drives most of our stories and dramatic things. Think of the story if you're just telling someone a story. Like, hey, I went to the post office and I had to mail back a package that I received by accident. That's your inciting incident, right? So that you start there. Got to the post office, it was closed. Plot point 2, plot point 1, what do? It's closed. So I drove around to find another post office, right? A midpoint, rising action. That one's closed as well, so it's building. I drove to 6 more post offices, and they're all closed. Plot point 2, I opened up my phone to look for more post offices, realized that it's a holiday. So post offices are closed. We're leading to the climax. So I just, I took the package and I just left it outside of the post office, and that's the resolution. I was fed up with it. Right? So that's a nice quick story. The point is, I messed up and I just was so frustrated. I didn't know what to do. But, I find out that the post offices are closed because it's a holiday. So for example, that's a story structure. Very simple, but I'm just trying to give a good example of how you can go through something like that. Now, location in scripts, that's always important. Where does it take place? So what town, buildings, what planet? You can be on Mars. And you got to establish this through the descriptions, and, how can this be enhanced through like narration, sound design, and things like that. So where does it take place is always a key thing. And also the location is just beyond, it's in a library, but maybe it's a library 100 years from now. And what does that library look like? The library of the future. So that's really key. It's another world 100 years from now. What's happening? So it's a fictional world of a representation of what might happen 100 years from now. Okay, so then genre, we mentioned this earlier, there's expectations. So if you're writing a Western, if you're writing a romance, if you're writing an action film, you expect certain things with the genre. And you market it that way. Like, that James Bond film is going to be an action movie. It's not going to be a comedy, right? There might be comedic elements, but it's not overriding comedy where things, he's not a bumbling fool and there's the comedic physical comedy or something, or doesn't read that way, right? It's an action movie. A horror movie is a horror movie. It's not going to be a romance, right? So again, there could be elements of different genres, but you make it really clear. So here's just kind of a quick list. You can again review this again later, but horror, Western, war, crime, action, adventure, historical drama, biography, science fiction, and so on. So lots of different genres you can choose from. Characters are really important, and we'll get into the format right away. But it's not just the character, like who are the characters, but it's how do you get into the true characters. So, and this is where we get into, human choices, deeper revelations. You need to know who those characters are before you write. So this is kind of that pre-production part before you even sit down and write your screenplay, is understanding who your characters are. Are they based on people that you already know, family members, friends, people you met somewhere, or if you're in a coffee shop and you're seeing people, maybe you're basing the characters on some people like that too. So, that's the whole idea. So character, not as just the characters, but what is their character of the character. So it's a little bit of a double meaning there, right? So you need to understand that so you can write, it can come out in the writing, like who this character is. Like this character is a workaholic. He, is in finance. He has substance abuse problems, whatever it is. But all these things have to be understood by you, and you're not necessarily showing all of that, but you need to know that that's what the character is going through, so you can write it as in that frame of mind for the character. Story climax. So as we talked about, like that post office thing, the positive negative assertion, the same idea. It goes back and forth through the story until there's finally a crisis, and then everything has to collide. Like what do I do with everything being closed? I messed up. I'm stuck with this package. I don't want to drive around with it anymore. Maybe it's huge and heavy. I've been carrying it around, and I need to, I need my car space for something else. And that's the climax. And then you finally just give up, and I left it at a post office. And please send this back. Sorry, you're closed. So that's the whole idea. Is that if and that's funny. So that would be a comedic genre, right? In that kind of a story. So that's the whole point. Is that that's the point where everything comes, it's revealed. What was the point of the story? And that's the idea moves us into the climax of the story, where finally something happens. So something needs to happen. And there might be some films and that don't necessarily have a very clear climax, but there's still something. It can be really minor. We could be, if you just filmed 20 minutes of a rock in a garden, and then all of a sudden it just moves in the last 2 minutes, that's your climax. So just think of it that, like just something that's constant, and it's kind of going back and forth. We see sun, rain, snow, and then the rock just moves. That's a climax. It's very subtle, but why did the rock move? And then maybe the resolution is that there's an earthquake. So we find out there's an earthquake and it moved. So that explains it. Or it just moved mysteriously, and then we're like, well, maybe there's a force. So then you have to watch another episode. Will the rock move again? So it doesn't have to be massively huge ideas, but the point is that something needs to move. So I'm giving that example of literally a rock needs to move. Think of that too, as their story needs to move from point A to point B. Something has to happen, and that's the point, that we watch that rock because it's going to move. That's the only reason you watch that 10 minutes, because it ends up moving. Otherwise, there's no point if it never moved. Right? So that's the same thing with our story, that it needs to move forward. Okay, script format. Let's get right into script format. Then we'll get into the iPad and demo how it works. So script format, basically you have, this is how Final Draft will work, but we write scripts like this. Interior, old farmhouse. So like what's the location, day. Then we can have, narrator, it was a dark and snow-filled night. Julie, I can't believe it's snowing again. So those are like the dialogue boxes. Then we can have the description boxes. And here I just have like sound effects, wind howling, music, piano theme can be heard. But it could be old farmhouse. So it can be like interior old farmhouse. Shutters rattle against the windows. The sun trickles through the boards that have massive holes, gaping holes in them. The wood floor creaks as feet are, walk towards us. And then we get into the character talking. So we've described where we are, and we can describe Julie, a young woman dressed in a full snowsuit with winter boots makes her way up a hallway that's filled with snow inside the house. So we get an idea the snow is in the house. It's not holding back the snow and the elements. So we're getting a very specific kind of story. So that it sounds intriguing already. Like, why is this happening? Why is she in an old farmhouse and it's snowing inside the farmhouse? It's dilapidated and so on. So it's telling us a lot. So maybe she's there trying to help someone, or she's exploring this abandoned house, whatever it is, but it leads us to questions. So that's script formatting. That's how we would use it. So again, scene heading. So you type interior or exterior. So INT is for interior, EXT is for exterior, location name, and then the time of day. So, and it's all capitals. So that's our format there. So you put, it could be day, night, afternoon, dusk, dawn, any of those kinds of things, evening, morning, right? So the more specific you are, the better. And why do we do these things? We say what it is because if you're going to film it, you need to know that you're filming it, the scene takes place in the morning. So you want to be filming it in the morning, so it can take place in the morning. Or the scene takes place in the evening, or dusk, dawn, day, night. We need to know where it is. Interior, is it inside? Is it exterior? Is it outside? That's, again, how do we film it? You want to usually film all your interiors one time, all your exteriors another time. We tend not to want to flip back and forth for efficiencies in filmmaking if it's a longer script, right? And then we go to the next line. So we get into the action or descriptions, add sound, music notes, add descriptions of the space, the characters. Hit tab, and then you go to the character name, and it's centered. So we have the character name is all caps, centered. Then you have the dialogue, and that becomes centered under that centered character's name. And that's how we get into script formatting. It's really that simple. It's a great format, and it's really easy to read. As you can see, it's concise. It doesn't take a lot of space up. I can read through it, see the dialogue, see what I'm reading, see the descriptions. And it's also important because actors can quickly find their lines with the dialogue. And reading the script, the descriptions, every role in the filmmaking process reads the script for different reasons. Like art department's going to be looking at all the descriptions of what this building looks like. The actor is going to be looking at their lines and what their character does. They're not going to necessarily care what the building looks like as much. They'll still read it. But it's a quick way to see your lines, figure out what the dialogue is, and know that someone's speaking. If you don't see those dialogue bubbles in the middle and centered, there's no dialogue on that page. So that's a quick reference point of figuring out what's on the page and how it's working, and moving on from there. Okay, so software quick keys. So these are, again, this kind of applies for the desktop version. So I'm not going to get into this too much because we're going to be able to do it all just by hand. So let's explore Final Draft. Let me just get this the iPad going here. So this should be up. Yep. Okay, here we go. So here's the iPad. So here's my screen of the iPad. And let's see if we can maybe make it bigger like this. That's a little bit nicer. Okay, so here's the iPad. And I'm going to go to FD Mobile. So I'm just going to click on that. And that's it. That's how we open up. So to get this, iCloud, I'm saving stuff on the iCloud. And I'm just going to go back here. And you can find different things. So let's say scripts, and we can go from there. So recent, I'm going to do a new script. So I'm going to say screenplay. So first we go with the plus screenplay. Here's my new script. I'm going to say screenwriting demo script. And I always like to even say what it is. So if it's like draft 1, accept, and that's it. So now I've started it. So here is my page. And like this series is called Blank Screen. So right away you're like, oh no, it's a blank screen. So what do we do? So this is how it starts, blank screen. So now I'm just gonna click on this and you can see it starts. We've emptied the blank screen, we started. So I just touch anywhere on the screen and it's gonna start with asking me where we are. So I'm gonna say interior, you can see it does that. Interior, old farm house. And I'm hitting this tab button and that gives me to the next spot. And I'm gonna say morning, return. And now you can see it went from this heading to the action bubble. You can see those little bubbles like that. So now I'm in the action thing. And this is where I'm gonna describe what the farmhouse looks like. A large brick building stands on top of a hill. The roof has sections with holes and the shingles flap in the wind gusts. So always try to, add as much information as you can and really be efficient with that space. So if I'm talking about a roof and shingles flapping, I can also say that they flap in the wind gusts. So that lets me understand that there are wind gusts happening. So it starts to paint the idea. Snow flakes fall through the holes in the roof. Okay, now I'm going to go back here. So I'm just typing back up here. We're going to make this should actually be exterior. So I'm going to just retype, and that's how easy it is. So I'm going to go back here, return, and now it's asking me, okay, what do you want to do? It's thinking I want to do another action part, but what I'm going to do is let's go right to the inside now. So now I'm going to go interior, old farmhouse, and you can just quickly tap on those. It gives you suggestions. So that's how intuitive it is. It's going to learn what you're trying to say and write, and it's going to start giving you suggestions. Faint sunlight illuminates the snowflakes as they float from the roof. Several piles of snow form around a faded hallway carpet. Snow boots kick through the snow. Young woman dressed in in a red winter coat. She looks up at the hole in the roof. Okay, so that's all our description. Now I'm going to go to the character. So I'm going to hit character, and you can see now it's centered it. So I'm going to go back to that example. I'm going to say Julie. It caps it all nicely. Hit return. It goes to the dialogue. So you can see now it's on the dialogue mode, and you can always change these. So if you don't like where if you don't want to be dialogue, you want another action line, you can force different formatting for whatever reason. But this is going to go by the standards that we just talked about. So we have our interior old farmhouse. We wrote the first part, exterior, interior, then we describe what's happening, describe people, and we then have our character names and we have their dialogue. And this is essentially how we've now gone from that blank screen into this story. I can't believe it's snowing in house. Okay, not necessarily the best dialogue, but just an idea of a large snow flake lands on Julie's nose. It off. At a snow pile. Enters door to her right. A sign reads so here we'll just put like, what does it read? Office. So, okay, what does this mean, right? It's intriguing. What's happening here? Okay, so now she's enters the door to her right, a sign reads office, right? So this is all the visual cues. And now what we're going to do is like interior, old farmhouse, office. And we were calling this morning, right? And we continue writing and writing and writing. So this is our format. And that's essentially all that we're doing to make this work. So that's all we need to do in terms of the writing. And then there's a wrench here. Here we can put some, figure things out. We can put a title page. So this is the next thing we look at was a title page. What is this called? So office with snow, written by, and it gives you all the cues. So you can just fill in your name. If it's based on like another book or a poem or a piece of music, it can be based on anything. That's the beauty of it. You can write a whole script based on a song. And how interesting would that be? So if you're a musician, maybe you want to do that. And then you can put address and phone number if you want here. I'm just going to get rid of that part. And this, now you have a whole script, like title page. What I always like to encourage is put this little C and just go copyright 2021 and your name, or a company if you're working under a company. Just let people know that this is yours and it's the year you wrote it, so there's no issues with that. Then you just hit done, and that's your title page. and go back to the wrench. I can go to scene numbers. So we can then add scene numbers and say, let's scene heading, let's add numbers. You can see what it did here. It added 1, 2, 3. And that's really important in script writing, that you have the scene numbers, because when you're filming a script, or if you're recording, let's say it's an audio podcast, you want to know that you're recording scene 1, scene 2, and scene 3. And each scene is basically when you go inside, outside, and make your way in and out of spots. So that's how that works. Okay, so then you can remove them and so on. So then, what else can we do? Page setup, we can, say, US letter, we can make it A4 for like the European size. Header and footer, we can put different things. We can then we can put revision mode. So anytime you're typing, you can go from there. Now, the last thing we need to do is, how do we export this? So this little arrow button that goes out, that's how we can export out. So we can create a PDF, we can email the script, we can email reports. The reports would contain things like all the locations, all the characters. Let's have a look at that. So email reports, you can see here, scene report, location report, character report, cast report. It gives total scenes and dialogue for characters, script report, statistics report, word count, sorry. So there's all this kind of data. It's really amazing what this software can do beyond just word processing, because it's categorizing, it knows where the characters are and so on. If you did this, let's say in like, a Word type program, you're going to not have all those features of having a list of all your characters, having a list of what's in the story, such as all the locations and page counts, number counts, and all that. So it's a really interesting tool to make work to enhance what's going on in your scripts. So you can email the script, and I'll just go as a final draft format or a PDF, right? So you can do FDX or PDF. So final draft, what's great, even if people have it for a desktop, you can always just open the scripts. It always lets you go into reader mode. So you can send it to anybody. They can download final draft. They don't have to pay anything for the software to just use it in reader mode. So it's kind of like Adobe Acrobat. You can always read stuff, but you don't necessarily have the capability to create the stuff. But it allows, final draft can be used as read-only mode for anybody. But I always recommend go as a PDF and then you email it out. So let's go back here, and I'm just gonna save this as a PDF. So here you go. I have a couple iCloud Drive. I have scripts, so I'm just gonna put it right in my iCloud Drive, and this way it's always available on any device. So that's what I always recommend. Put it right here, and demo script, move, and that's it. And now we have the PDF in my iCloud Drive, and I can send it out. Now, the same thing, I can definitely just email myself the script, right? So I can go, okay, PDF, and then it just opens up the prompt, so I can email myself and say, okay, let's email it to myself. Tom at Mountain Goat, there is my email there. Final Draft Mobile, and click the arrow, and it sends it out. So that's as simple as it gets. And then what you can do is you can go back, and so here's my screenwriting demo, this one, right? And you can just keep working on it, and it's quite simple in terms of how it works. And then you just open this up again, and it's there. So you keep writing, send it to yourself, and you can then do the formatting, and it's quite ingenious in terms of how it will look, and there's some smart type options. So you can see the smart type, it tries to look at what you're doing and how you're doing that. And then here you can decide app settings as well. So check spelling. You can, it's constantly telling you if you spelled something wrong, it's going to say, hey, this looks wrong. And really, that's it. That is how simple it is to go from the total blank screen that we had to starting to write a script. So I wrote a few scenes. You can see it takes a bit of time, but if you have the story, you can tell the story, you can get the story going, you can get the story out, and it's a great piece of software to use and to make work a lot easier when you're doing screenplays, audio scripts, anything like that. So hopefully this will help you turn, you might already have this software downloaded, you have it on your iPad or your iPhone, it's blank. So there's no reason for it to be blank. Just start writing, try some stuff out, think of a nice story that you want to tell. Experiment just writing it out. And the more you practice, you don't have to, it's not like you have to go and film all these scripts. The thing is that you can practice, you can try things out, and then you can see what works for you, what doesn't work, and you only get better with practice. It's like photography, music, anything. Practice is a part of the process of this craft of screenwriting. So again, this was the Final Draft mobile version. You can just get it from the App Store. It's for iPads. You can put it on your iPhone. So any iOS device, like an iPod Touch would work too. So any kind of Apple iOS device. Just download it. I think it's about $10 US. I think last time I saw it, somewhere around that price point. So it's very, very cost effective. Might be about $15 Canadian. It's a pretty simple, small cost to get the industry standard screenwriting software out there. And then this can be used on Final Draft computers. Where can you use these where can you get access to these computers? Well, I'm glad you asked. So what you can go back to is all our beautiful library partners. We have the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library. All the libraries are equipped with a Creator Space digital arts computers. And we've put Final Draft on that to use as parts of being part of the Creator Space program. So so that's really key. So you can go to the libraries. You can then open this. If you email it to yourself, take it off your iCloud or from your email, and then you can work on it in Final Draft on the desktop. So if you prefer a bigger screen, that's great too. And then you can sit on the desktop with a keyboard. So you can work on this, let's say in a coffee shop, then you can go into the library, you can work on it there. Maybe you need to do some research, you want to take some books out. And that's a great way to do it. Is if you go to the library, you can then access some historical books. Let's say you're writing in about farmhouses. You can get a whole book on farmhouses. So you get an idea of what they look like, abandoned farmhouses. They have books on that there too. It's quite amazing what you can find in the library. So use that resource in combination with as you're writing. It's a great way to do it. So again, thanks for joining us. Hopefully you can move from your blank screen into starting to write your screenplay using Final Draft Mobile for iPads and iOS. Again, you can rewatch this. Thanks for joining me. I just again want to thank all our partners, the library partners that I mentioned, and also the Canada Council for the Arts. So thanks for joining us. Please rewatch, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I will see you again soon. Check us out for more workshops. Go to tbmcs.ca and you can sign up for more. All the best and see you guys soon. Take care.